Okay, I'm going to go ahead and begin the training. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Hyman. I'm the Data Product Manager here at RelSci, and thank you for registering and attending this group training session. Our Client Success Managers, Ashley Sixco, Alexa Healy, and Grace Hall are also on the line as well. They'll probably chime in every now and then. You may be asking, what are these group training sessions? These sessions will act as initial trainings for new users and a great refresher for more experienced users. We're going to be doing these twice per month, and you can find all of the relevant information for future training sessions right up here in the RelSci training link. You can click that off your home page. You can see some information regarding what we're going to be covering in these sessions. You can register here for any future sessions. Please feel free to register for as many sessions as you wish, and also feel free to pass them along to your colleagues. We're going to be updating this page frequently with information regarding future sessions, so please be sure to check back in for updates. Because this training session is for both for-profit and nonprofit users, I'm going to do my best to focus on helpful tips that will be useful for both types of users, while also pointing out some things that may be more relevant for only one of those types of users. We're also going to send a quick survey at the conclusion of this webinar to all of the attendees. This is solely to gauge how helpful this first session was to all of you with the aim of improving future sessions. And in the survey, if you don't mind, please just submit any topics that you'd like covered in future webinars. In this session, I'm going to discuss best practices for getting started with RelSci, relationship management, leveraging lists, and a few helpful tips in between. You also have the ability to submit any questions that you may have along the way. There's a question box right in GoToWebinar. You should be able to find that easily and submit any questions. And we're going to leave room at the end of this session for questions. I'll be happy to answer any of them along with the help from my client success managers. And since we have so many attendees of this session, if we don't get to your question, please hang on to it. We'd love to address it. I'd be happy to help with this, and I'm sure your client success manager would also be happy to address your question. So getting started, we're going to have about a 20-minute session here, and then we'll save some time at the end, like I said, for your questions. So switching back here. Now this is your main landing page in RelSci. I'm sure you're very familiar with it. Newer users, maybe not so much. Relationships are going to be listed in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. These represent the shared network of connections for you and your colleagues, and they're going to be the starting point for any future relationship mapping. Now, just to clarify, relationships are individuals. Relationships are individuals that you can leverage. They're door openers or people that you'd be willing to reach out to for an introduction. So these are people that you know, maybe you have close connection with them. They're definitely not prospects. They're not people that you haven't met before. So it's best to utilize this space for people that you do feel comfortable with. Users have the option to sync their own proprietary relationships, which is often favored by our for-profit clients. Looks like this is filling up quickly. You can also sync organizational relationships, which is favored by our nonprofit clients. Nonprofit clients may be using this to leverage their key leadership, board members, etc. To view your existing proprietary relationships, you're just going to click on the numbers in red right here, My Relationships. This is going to bring you into the relationship management page. Now, I'm using a MyRelWeb setup, but for a lot of for-profit clients, you might not have that setup. We can get into that in a later session, but I just want to point out that for non-RelWeb setup, you're going to see something that says My Firm's Relationships. It'll be around here. My firm's relationships is essentially my relationships plus my colleagues' relationships. So it represents your firm's entire network. And RelWeb essentially does the same thing. Very similar. Now, to upload your relationships or your firm's relationships, you're going to click right here, Sync More Contacts, right under Relationship Management. This is going to bring you to a page that shows you various options for how to upload and sync new relationships. And if you click any of these, it's going to give you step-by-step instructions. Now, there are two main types of information that RelSci needs in order to automatically match relationships. And keep in mind, what you're really doing by syncing your relationships here is you're submitting information that RelSci is then going to use to pair against the relationship that we have, the information that we have for profiled individuals. So the main information that we're going to be using to create those matches will be name info. So it could be first name and last name, or it could be full name. And then one of the following two, either company info or company email address. Company info, it could be your prior company, your current company, or any boards that you work on. All of these are linked to individual profiles and may help to create a match. Company email address will also help to create a match. What will not help to create a match is personal email address. We don't have that mapped. There's no way to access that information. So as we go through this and I show you how to upload relationships, anytime you see email address, we're always referring to company email address. If you input someone's personal email, if it comes from a Gmail or Yahoo or anything like that, it's basically going to be ignored. It's not going to help us to create a match. And any other information such as position, city, or other is going to be useful, but again, it's not required. And just so you're aware, this is an example file that you would use to upload new relationships. So again, first name, last name, company email address here, company will help, and then all this other information is optional and can only help. Now, for your information, we have over 10 million individuals profiled in the RelSci database, and these individuals are linked to about 2 million different organizations. So we do have pretty extensive coverage. But even with that in mind, you probably should not expect to have a one-for-one match ratio when you're uploading relationships. We don't have universal coverage, and we also tend to focus more on highly influential people, especially with regards to expanding our coverage. So you should think C-suite, board members, senior leadership, mainly at larger companies, but also some smaller companies as well. Obviously, as you go more senior and as you go to more notable companies, we're going to have more extensive coverage for those types of people. We do have some of the mid-market types of employees, more junior roles, but the coverage there is definitely more sparse than our coverage for C-suite and others. One good thing to note is that if you find that there is a missing profile in RelSci for someone that you really need to have, you can go right here to RelSci Services and click on the profile requests and data errors. You can use this for a couple different reasons. One, if you land on a profile for an existing RelSci person and you notice that something is outdated, just type their name, their company, go to their profile and copy that URL and put it in here. And then just give us the details. This person's role is outdated. They no longer work at this company. Their name is misspelled. Sometimes that happens. So if you submit these, they're going to go directly to our research team and they'd be happy to assist. You can also click this one for create new profile. So I have someone, John Smith, that I'm really interested in targeting. He works at ABC Corporation, and he's not profiled by RelSci currently, but very, very important that I get him profiled. I'll just put some details down here. Feel free to post a URL or any helpful information that would expedite the profiling process. And that's going to send directly to the research team. Generally, I would say there's about an 8-day turnaround for things like this, but we're happy to help. Now, just to dive into what this process looks like, uploading some context, I already showed you the upload template, but you have a few other options. Obviously, you can sync from Exchange, your mobile app, or Gmail. Now, these are one-time syncs. They're non-continuous. So if I click in here, it's going to allow me to use my user credentials for Microsoft Exchange so that I can log into Exchange directly from the RelSci platform. There is a disclaimer there. You're allowing us to access your stored contacts. Some people may not be comfortable with that, and there is a workaround for it. And the same thing is going to happen with mobile. We're accessing your address book, and Gmail, same thing. If that's not acceptable to you, that's okay. You can come into here, and this is the workaround that I just mentioned. It's available for Outlook, LinkedIn, Salesforce, Gmail, as well as others. If you just download the RelSci template, it's right here. You would select up here that filled out file, and you could upload. So any other sources that are not available here, you can just export the information, get it into that template, and upload them here. But for something like LinkedIn or Outlook, Salesforce, etc., we have step-by-step instructions. So for LinkedIn, for example, you would come here, you would post this link into your browser. You would make these 2 selections once logged into your account. So you're just requesting an archive report be sent to you. And again, this download will take a few minutes to send to your email address. You're just going to authorize it with your password. LinkedIn is going to send you that email. Again, it might take a few minutes. And then you'll download it. The file is going to be called connections.csv. And then you just upload that right here. Very easy process. Now, again, this is probably not going to result in a 1-for-1 match ratio. With LinkedIn, the match ratio tends to be even lower. The reason for this is because LinkedIn information can be very sparse. It's dependent on what the person puts in their profile and what that person is willing to share. So you might have an outdated company or a company that we don't recognize. You might have an abbreviated name. Sometimes people on LinkedIn use abbreviations. You probably won't have their company email address. All of these things are going to help to create a match. And when you don't have them, the match rate drops. But another thing that I can show you to help with that, if you do upload a list of relationships, like for example, I have this list right here, it's a 40 under 40 list. You can see I've filled out all of the first names, last names, middle initial where I could. Companies are in here, position. I don't really have any email addresses, but this should suffice. So there's 40 people on this list, and I actually uploaded this right before the session. And if I want to look at recent uploads that I've committed, I can go to match history right here. Click on that match history, and here's my file upload that I just told you about. Like I said, just a few minutes before the session. Now, I had done this previously, and full disclaimer, it had added 34 relationships and 6 potentials. So what are potential matches? This happens when we think we have a match, but we're not totally sure. Maybe the information is limited. For example, in the file that I just showed you, I purposefully changed the spelling on a few names. So some names are misspelled, some companies are absent, stuff like that. And that's going to prevent a match from being made. If I click into this section, right here, I'm going to see the person that I've uploaded. This is the information that I have. So you can see his last name is abbreviated. And it's trying to match this person right now to profiled entities that we have in RelSci, but it's not really sure because I didn't fill out the last name. It thinks that it's this person because look, the company is the same and the role is the same. But again, for some reason, one reason or another, it's just not sure. But I am. This is the right person right here, so I'm going to click add. And that just added this potential as a new relationship. You'll notice that this ticked up by 1. And if I scroll down, same thing. Actually, not sure that this person matched properly, so I'll ignore that one. If you look at this name, looks like there was a special character right here in the last name. And for some reason, the system didn't pick up on that. So that's why you have a question mark here. But the potential did suggest the right match. So I'm going to add that relationship. And if you see here, I got the last name wrong on this one. I said Jeremy Park. It's actually Jeremy Parker. But you can see the role and the company, and that'll help you tie out the match. So just wanted to walk you through this section really quickly so that you know, even if you don't have all of the matches that you would expect, you can come into this section and see any of the potential matches. And if you're not seeing something that should be here, I would recommend going back into the upload and trying to add some more information to create a match or maybe a potential match. And you can also search the system to try to find that person. If you're not seeing them pop up and you think they should be, maybe they're just not profiled. So then you could go to RelSci services again and say, hey, I need that person profiled. Now it's very important to make sure that all of your relationships are up to date. This is going to affect every other tool within the system. And you can see my new relationships that I just added right here, by the way. RelSci is a garbage in, garbage out system. What this means is if you don't add all of the relationships in here that you potentially have, you're not going to get the full benefit of the system. So when you go to Pathfinder and you try to generate paths to a target organization or a person of interest, you might be missing some potential paths if you don't keep your relationships up to date. So we generally recommend re-uploading relationships every few months. But if you're interested in learning more about automatic relationship uploads, please feel free to reach out to your client representative, and they'd be happy to tell you about our new tool, Radar. Really quickly, if you haven't heard about it, Radar scans your Exchange environment. It scans only metadata, so it's never taking the body of your email. We're happy to go into that further. But basically what it's going to do is it's going to use interaction data and stored contacts to constantly keep your relationships refreshed. So if you know that you keep all of your relationships in Outlook, for example, then you're never really going to have to re-upload relationships here, or at least very infrequently. So again, reach out and we'd be happy to cover that with you. Now this pretty much covers everything on the My Relationships page. There's some things here that are important to note. You can turn your alerts on and off. This is going to enable 360 alerts for all of your relationships. So basically, if we ingest a news article and that person is tagged in that article, you're going to get an alert. You can see it from your homepage. There's a section 360 news alerts where you can search these alerts. And you can also enable 360 alerts emails. So it will push these to your inbox. You can also report on your relationships as a CSV or a PDF. If you keep it as CSV, you have some customizable fields that you can include in that report. And again, if you have questions about this, please let us know. Another thing to note before I move on actually is that in addition to the potential matches, as you add relationships, RelSci learns more about the other types of people that you may know or be familiar with. So if you go to this people you may know, these aren't potential matches from file uploads. but these are relationships that RelSci is suggesting to you to say, hey, since you know 3 people that you just uploaded, you might know some of these people too. So you can dismiss these if you don't know these people, and more will pop up. Maybe you know one person, you can add that relationship. But this is another helpful section to know about. And with that, I'm going to move on to lists. It's the second part of this session. The list function is where you can bucket contacts, firms, individuals that should not go into relationships. So we're in relationship management right now. Let's pop over to lists under the tools section. These are my lists. People that you want to put in lists, these could include prospects, parent lists, event attendees, a list of target companies or individuals. You can upload a list by clicking into the list tool down here that I just showed you and clicking upload file to list. And this is going to work off of the same template that I showed you earlier, the same one that you use to upload new relationships. You can also include some other supplemental information like ticker, donor status, investor status. And this allows you to organize your contacts in an efficient manner and gives you the ability to use them in other tools, which I'll go over in later sessions. Now, if I wanted to create a new list, I would just click right here and I could say webinar demo. And I can include a description as well. This is my demo list. Save that. And then you see it right here. There's no one on it right now. But for example, if I were to go to Powersearch, which I'll do really quickly for you, and if I searched a few people here, I could generate some results, scroll down to where the results would populate down here, and I could add them to that list. This is exactly what I did with this list right here. Lafayette alumni who work at hedge funds. Lafayette's my alma mater, so maybe I'm interested in connecting with some of these people. Now, how did I populate this list? Again, I went to Powersearch right here, and I populated this criteria. So I was looking for people that work at hedge funds in New York City and went to Lafayette College. Clicked search, and these are the results, results that I generated. 20 results. Now you'll notice in this list I have 20 people. Now I just want to show you really quickly because we get this question very commonly. What happens if I upload someone twice? Am I going to have dupes in my list? The answer is no. We have 20 people in that list right now, and I just generated those same 20 results. If I want to add these people to that same list, I'm going to do it right now to prove it to you. Click save. Okay, I just added all those 20 people. Now let's go back. Let's refresh this. And you'll see that the same 20 people are still in this list. So don't worry about adding dupes. If you have a few overlapping individuals that are already on the list, it's no big deal. The system will sort this out. Now, just a few things to show you here from this list. If I wanted to, I could enable alerts on all of these individuals. Now up here in the 360 news section, also off the home page, and if I get email alerts as well, I'll start seeing alerts on all of these people. I can also edit this list. So I could edit the list details. These are people from Lafayette. Save that. And here's your description up here. I can customize the fields in this list, so click that. And these are just some common fields that we like to add. My shortest path, so that's going to be utilizing Pathfinder. And if I have an internal ID stored from my firm, I can save that as well. Click save. And it's going to populate down here now. And this is actually really cool because now I can jump straight to Pathfinder from my list. I want to find paths to David, just click see all, and it'll take me over there. Another thing that I want to show you, you can share lists with your colleagues. So in this demo webinar group, my colleague Jeremy Newman is the only other person. I can share this list with him very easily. And now he can see it as well. I can report this list if I want to share it with, say, a non-RelSci user. Set it as a PDF. Maybe I only want the top 10, or I want all of them. I can also convert this to a CSV and then customize the report. Maybe I want to include last 3 employments and private notes that I've stored. I can download this. And there you go. Now that happened really quickly, but sometimes when the system is running a little bit more slowly, you can click email to me and then click continue using the platform. That'll have the report sent to your email so that you can go about your other tasks. Now, some people tend to have more lists than I do in here. If you need to search, you can use this search bar here. Let's look for our Lafayette list, and there it is. I'm going to refresh this now and just point out to you that you can view specifically your lists here and lists that your colleagues have shared with you here. There's a different set of permissions. So for example, my colleagues lists, I can't do as much here. I can't necessarily edit them in the same way that I might be able to if it was my list. So that's why this is a helpful distinction. You can also delete people from lists. If I go into here, edit, delete list items. Maybe I already spoke to Arthur and I know he's not a good lead anymore, so I'm going to delete him from the list. Let's refresh this. And now you'll see I only have 19 people in this list. Now we also have some pre-made lists. So feel free to reach out to your client representative and ask about those. The 40 under 40 that I have, that's a free list. We have Forbes lists and Fortune 500 lists, Cranes. Happy to share those with you. All right, and this concludes the session. So I'm going to open it up now. We're going to start looking at some of the questions that we may have gotten during this webinar. Be happy to answer some of those. And I'm going to actually open this up to our client success managers because I know they've been monitoring the questions. So let's see if we have any.
Sure, I'm happy to take the first question. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Emily asked, is there any cost associated with requesting a new profile on an individual? It's a great question. If you click on RelSci services at the top of the page and put in that request with our team to profile a new individual or update a profile, there will not be any associated cost. That is included in your subscription, so no additional fee there.
If there are any other questions, feel free to submit those. Happy to take you through those.
Yeah, of course. We've got a lot of questions here. I'm just going through. So someone asked, do you track when an individual changes their last name? We would love to identify individuals who have a maiden name in our system, but due to marriage changed their name later in life. So we have this team of 200 research analysts who are gathering information from public sources. So we get information from government filings, press releases, company websites. We also license data from third-party vendors like LexisNexis, FactSet, Crunchbase, Thomson Reuters. So when someone does change their name, if that information is captured from our proprietary research or from one of our vendors, that is updated on the profiles.
Great. And we have another question here. Can you speak more about my firm's internal ID and how you share that with RelSci and how you validate it's actually the same person? So you have the ability to sync your internal IDs to the RelSci database, and your client success manager would be happy to walk you through that process and help you with the upload, so feel free to reach out to us. But what that'll allow you to do is when you do the initial upload process that Brian walked you through, whether that be for a relationship or for a list, you also have the ability to sync your internal ID. So this could be the number that's associated with that contact in your CRM or in another database there. You also have the option to do that upload all at once, so we could sync all of the contacts in your database, see who matches to RelSci, and even if they aren't a relationship or on a list, when you pull up that profile, the internal ID will be listed. So feel free to reach out to your client success manager to chat about that further.
And the next question I see, someone said, can we get email for a contact that's in RelSci? So we built the whole platform, leveraging who you know to get warm introductions to prospects. But within the past few years, we started licensing professional contact data from a few different vendors, Dun & Bradstreet being one of them. This capability is dependent on the organization. So if you are interested in exploring contact data for about 25% of our population, I suggest reaching out to your client success manager, whether it's myself, Grace, or Alexa, and we can turn on that capability for you if it's not currently enabled.
Great. I see another question here about syncing Outlook contacts if you are using Office 365. So two different options there. You would click that Upload Contacts button on the right side of the page, and you could either log in directly to Office 365 on that first page by clicking Exchange, just entering your credentials, or you could download a file from your Outlook and sync that to the platform as well, if you're more comfortable with that method. And just to note that automatic relationship syncing solution Radar is compatible with Office 365, so that would be an option as well.
And Brian, someone asked if we could just walk through how you searched for alumni again in Powersearch and then how you saved that list. Do you mind just reviewing that really quickly?
Sure, absolutely. So I had it preloaded right here, but yep, this is Powersearch. So this basically allows you to query our database, and you can do this for people and organizations. So just as an example, I was interested in people located in New York City who work at hedge funds and attended Lafayette College. So you have all these sections in Powersearch. If I minimize these, you'll see. So basics like location, keyword, name, etc. Career, where do they work? What's their role? Are they still working there? Did they used to work there? Education, where'd they go to school? What degree did they receive? What years did they go to that school? And then there's a lot of other functionality: investments, public holding, compensation, insider transaction, clients, donations, membership, personal. So what's their hometown, political party, interests, what's their age? So if we have any of this information tied to an individual, it's going to filter those results based on what you specify here. So it's often good to start small, just a few filters, and then you can continue to filter down the results with additional searches. Another thing that you should be aware of is you can filter down lists by using Powersearch. So this appears on right here. If I wanted to focus on people who appear on my Lafayette alumni list, and maybe I don't care about whether they're in New York City or not, and I don't care about where they work either, but I do care about when they went to Lafayette. So I'm looking for people who went from 1991 to 1995. Maybe that's when I went. Probably not, but maybe. Click search. Uh-oh. See, so that is what would happen when you filter too greatly. So maybe we want to open this back up. And you can play around with this and see what types of results you generate. Hopefully that helps.
And then from here, you just select add to list, and then you could store that list within your list tool. You could name it here. One of the next questions we got is there a way to share ownership of a list with a colleague so you both have the same editing rights? So Brian, do you mind just navigating to the list tool?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can click within one of your lists. So if you select this share feature here, you can share, depending on how your organization is set up, if there's different groups involved, you could share with specific groups of users. And then right below that, you're able to select whether it's collaborative or read-only. If it's collaborative and that you keep that checked, you do have the option to edit that list, and any of those users within the groups can edit the list. If you uncheck it, that's when it becomes read-only, so you cannot edit it, but you can still report and run certain searches on it.
And it looks like we had quite a few questions about the template that Brian showed earlier for uploading relationships or lists. That is available for you to download right on the RelSci platform. So Brian, if you don't mind just clicking Upload Contacts on the right side here, and then click Upload File, you'll see right at the bottom of the page a link to download that template. If you need that in your inbox, if it'd be easier to just reach out to us, you can email Ashley, I, or Alexa as well.
And again, just in case I did that a little bit too quickly, apologies. I went to My Relationships. Right under Relationship Management, I clicked Sync More Contacts. And then remember, you have these 4 options here. So I'm doing a manual upload. I'm going to click Upload a File. And there it is right here, download our custom template. And again, it's going to look just like this. It's just not going to have these filled in.
And one of the next questions was, could you please show us how you started the list again? So if you go to the list tool, Brian, if you're uploading a file to a list, you can click Upload File to List right at the top. And then that CSV template is right in the second line item. And then once you choose the file, upload it, you're able to name it and include the descriptions and everything that Brian mentioned.
I'm also seeing a question. Do you need to check if someone is on RelSci already before you upload them as a new contact? Or will RelSci flag that you need to submit a new request to have them added? So just to preface, we don't usually add profiles by request in bulk, but we are happy to do these in one-off instances. So if you're uploading a file and you notice that someone important did not match to a RelSci profile, my word of advice would be to first try to find them by searching the profile. And if you can't find them, then go to RelSci services and request that profile be added. And again, there is a turnaround period for those requests. But you do not need to make sure that someone's already on RelSci before you upload that new contact file. You will be able to go into match history and see any potentials or any matches, and then you'll be able to solve for which contacts were not uploaded. And again, to get there, my relationships, match history. This is a recent upload. So these are my new relationships, potentials, and no matches.
Amazing. I think we have time for one more question. Someone said, is there a max amount of contacts that you can have on your RelSci account? Absolutely not. We always say the more relationships that you have in the system, the more results that you'll see when running paths, the more daily digest emails that you'll get. So definitely recommend uploading your relationships from all different Rolodex of connections that you have. And I think at this point, unfortunately, there are so many questions left. They're great questions, and we apologize that we can't get through all of them, but feel free to email your CSM, again, Grace, Alexa, or myself, and we'd be happy to walk you through any of the additional questions that we were unable to get to today. And Brian, thank you so much for walking everyone through this, and everyone, thank you so much for your time, and please take the survey so we know where we could improve and what other topics you want to see in future webinars. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining.